Hello, fellow Rebel Capitals. Hope you're well. So I wanted to do a quick update video because we've had so much going on today with these huge revisions in the non-farm payrolls, and this really increasing the probability of a recession. But what just hit the wire would suggest that we're not headed toward a recession, but we're actually in a recession. Let me show you exactly what I'm referring to. I first saw this on Zero Hedge, so I want to give credit where credit is due, but it's kind of behind their paywall. Let me do a screen share, and I'll show you guys what I'm referring to. Let's go over to Zero Hedge right here. Bloomberg chief economist, stunning admission. Job revisions confirm recession started in April of 2024. So this gal's name is Anna Wong. I've heard her a few times with Adam Taggart, my good buddy, on the Thoughtful Money podcast. If you're not listening to that podcast, what are you doing? You should, because it's a really, really good one. But let's go over to Bloomberg. And unfortunately, I subscribe to Bloomberg, but unfortunately, to read what Anna says, or as far as her full article, there's like another paywall. It's really annoying. But here's the quote we got that I think Zero Hedge is referencing, or they probably have a Bloomberg terminal, so they're probably getting her full article here. When all the revisions for 2024 and 2025 are complete, because remember, they're not yet, we won't get the final revisions until early in 2026 and 2027. We expect they'll show the business cycle peaked around April of 2024. It's possible the economy is either still in a recession. So when she says the business cycle peaked, that's just economists speak for we go into an economic contraction or recession, whatever you want to call it. So again, it's possible the economy is either still in a recession or is in the early phase of a new business cycle. So she's going as far to say that we're probably not in or headed toward a recession. We're either still in the recession that by her accounts started April 2024. And she's saying that the new data we're getting with these revisions, the first, second, third revisions, and then the benchmark revisions confirm her suspicions, her earlier suspicions, based on her models, that we probably had a recession that started sometime in 2024. So what I want to do is I want to compare that to some of the more basic indicators, but very powerful, that we use on this channel and that I talk about all the time. So let's shoot over to just the super simple one. Let's start with the yield curve and just the 2s and 10s. So you guys have seen, in fact, let me expand or zoom in here. There we go. So what we want to do is we really want to focus on the recessions post early 80s. Why is that? Because that's when the Fed really started to micromanage the overnight rate. Back here with Paul Volcker, that's actually kind of fake news. People think that Paul Volcker was the one that jacked up interest rates, and he actually didn't do that. He wasn't even targeting interest rates back in the early 80s or late 70s. He was actually targeting the amount of bank reserves. And he was doing that to slow down M2 money supply growth, which never slowed down. So he didn't stop inflation. Paul Volcker did not break the back of inflation. I can demonstrate that with 4 or 5 charts. And he definitely was not targeting interest rates. But what he did, and you got to give him full credit for this, is he allowed just a huge range. I think it's like a 4% range in the overnight rate. So he actually allowed the free market to break the back of inflation, and then he got the credit for it. But anyway, I don't want to go too far off tangent there. But the reason why I start with the recession of the early 1990s is because when Greenspan came in, he was the first one that actually tried to target, or did target, the overnight rate. Before that, the Fed chairs didn't do that. The Federal Reserve did not target overnight rates, specific overnight rates. So you see we have this inversion in 89, and then we have an uninversion kind of bounces back. But when we really get that steepener, and by the way, bull steepener, that's when the front end of the curve is going down faster than the long end. That's when the stuff hits the fan. So it's not during the inversion or during kind of this noisy part. It's after the curve really starts to steepen out. Boom. Same thing here with the .com bust. Now we go back to 95. A lot of people point to this and say, "Oh, look, we had the inverted curve." Okay, the whole curve wasn't inverted. I think it was just maybe it was more than twos and tens, but it wasn't the entire curve like we see. The SOM rule wasn't triggered. You didn't have all these other indicators because at the end of the day, the yield curve or any indicator isn't a be all end all. You have to take all of the data, analyze it, and then come to a conclusion. You can't just cherry pick things, even if they do have a very, very high accuracy rate, historically speaking. So then we go to .com and the same cycle here. You got a big steep inversion and throughout the curve, and then you get that uninversion due to a bull steepener, and boom, stuff hits the fan. We go to GFC, have an inversion, kind of a lot of noise, uninversion, then bounces back, and then we have that big steep uninversion, and boom, stuff hits the fan. Same thing with the cerveza sickness. It even did it during then. And so this last cycle, as you guys know from watching my videos, we had this inversion that started, let's just call it July, summer of 2022. And then it get huge inversion, especially in terms of a percentage. Because back here, interest rates, remember, were like 15% or something like that. So an inversion of 2% as far as the percentage of the overnight rate isn't that extreme. Where back here, I mean, that's massive in a lot of ways. Not just the absolute inversion in terms of basis points. You guys get what I'm saying? Okay, so then we have this kind of noise where it uninverts, then it inverts again, and then we have this steepening out. So you would expect that we would have hit a recession just based on the yield curve when it's done in the past, maybe sometime late 2024 or beginning of 2025 based just on the yield curve dynamics. But again, what Anna is saying is that she pegs it around here. So we still would have had an inversion. So I don't know. For me, my base case is if we have been in a recession, and I'm not saying this is not my prediction. I'm just informing you guys on what the head economist for Bloomberg is saying. Because it's, I think, very topical, obviously. And it explains a lot as far as what you guys have been seeing in the real economy. Because I'm sure that most of you who are just average Joes and Janes that wake up every morning, go to work, talk to your friends, talk to your family, and can do like the boots on the ground research, just anecdotally. I'm sure most of you have not come to the conclusion that, oh my gosh, the economy's been booming over the last 2 years, or the labor market is strong and resilient. I'm sure most of you are saying, what? This is like I'm taking crazy pills, like Will Ferrell and Zoolander. Like what? I turn on CNBC, I listen to Jerome Powell, I look at social media, and all these people are saying that the economy is doing fantastic. They need to come into my world, because in my world the economy isn't doing that well. But now all of a sudden it's starting to make more sense. Where, as usual, you guys using good old fashioned common sense and just looking at things through your own two eyes are able to make better or come to better conclusions, more accurate conclusions than these, PhDs and quote unquote experts and people on social media and the mainstream media that just live in New York or LA and that's all they see. Anyway, getting back to it, let's go to the near-term forward spread. And this is another very good recession indicator. Now, this is this updated? July. So it's not. Shoot, I wish this was, oh, it's frustrating. But what we want to do is the people that set up the near-term forward spread, which, by the way, is the Fed's favored recession indicator. So if you go back, they kind of just sweep it under the rug now because it doesn't really fit their narrative. But if you go back and read all these posts from the Federal Reserve themselves going back like 20 years, they always say that this is what they think is the most powerful indicator of an economic slowdown, let's say. And you can see why they're kind of trying to sweep it under the rug and pretend that it doesn't exist, because it's screaming recession and economic slowdown. So this would really fit with what Anna was saying, except usually, just like the 2s and 10s, you get an uninversion. Now, we did have an uninversion, a slight uninversion, back right around March, April of this year. So that would slightly I don't want to say it contradicts, because it was massively inverted, which is a huge red flag. It's just that in the past we've seen an uninversion, and that's when you usually get the stuff hitting the fan. But let's go over to, they have this new predictor, and this was actually pretty interesting because they use these supercomputers and kind of all these inputs. If you want to go to it, it's Perfect Predictors with an S.com. You guys can see it right here. You can check it out for yourself. But based on their measurement, or in all these inputs, all these supercomputers they use with all of these indicators, they came to the conclusion that all the perfect, combined, the perfect indicators have inverted by August 2023. Given a 24-month lead window, a recession must begin by August 2025 for these indicators to retain their perfect track record. And by the way, all these indicators, when you combine them, put them into a supercomputer, it spits out the model, let's say. This model had 100% accuracy, not 99, 100% accuracy, going back to, call it 1960. So again, there are no certainties, there are only probabilities. Even if you have an indicator that is this powerful, it can always be wrong. We have to acknowledge that for sure. But, obviously we're past August 25th. So this is just another data point to back up what Anna was saying, and that there's a strong probability that we're not headed for a recession, but we've been in one probably since 2024. So that was the quick update I wanted to give you guys. And tomorrow is a big day because we come out, or the PPIs come out. So that's the first signal that we'll get for what we should expect with the CPI. Why is that important? Because that's going to really impact the Fed's decision on whether or not they're going to cut 25 basis points or possibly even 50 basis points. And if they do cut 50 basis points, then that's going to give us some insights as to what will most likely happen at the long end of the curve. And why does that matter to you? Because that will likely impact mortgage rates, which impacts housing, which is really, that along with the S&P 500 is really propping up the US economy right now to the degree to which it is propped up. So definitely stay tuned to the Rebel Capitalist channel. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. As always, make sure you're standing up for freedom, liberty, free market capitalism, and we'll see you in the next video.